Welcome to Guest for Change. My name is Michaela and I'm the Sustainability Representative for the Guest List. As humans, we are on the frontier of cutting-edge digital technologies. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Dr. Michael Gebert, the Chairman of the European Blockchain Association. Without further ado, welcome, Michael. If we're thinking about fashion, we are seeing more and more practical applications of blockchain technology arise, right? Users are being able to track their information about their garments, so you can perhaps even track where that wool came from. And I recently also read an article that you can even know what the sheep's name was where that wool was sheared. If it's true or if it's a lovely story, regardless, you can trace it, right? But such as the supply chain and previous owners, you can also, with vintage clothing, they're now trying to introduce this where you can actually find the pieces and it can be more valuable. And perhaps there was also another video that I watched, they were trying to auction Marilyn Monroe's dress. And sometimes you can't really know if did she really wear it or is it a copy, but obviously with blockchain, you'd be able to detect that. But when it comes to permissioned and permissionless, as a brand, can you obviously decide which one you want to be? And how does that actually factor into fashion and fast fashion specifically? So for example, if a massive corporation decides to be permissionless, correct me if I'm wrong, that's when you I think I'm on the right track. If you don't want people to see your path per se, how does that actually affect the transparency? Because surely a consumer would want to know that. So wouldn't it take away their trust in that brand if they choose to be?
If it's normally what you have is you have ecosystems, existing ecosystems and industries. Mm-hmm. The fashion industry is its own ecosystem. So if you would build a blockchain, permissioned blockchain on the ecosystem, let's say a whole individual blockchain that is just permissioned for that ecosystem, meaning that it's basically decentralized. There is a governance model, which is always good, a governance structure, because a rule set, it makes sense in an industry that is there. And you can do private transactions, which is good. You have an authentication process because you want not everybody in, because you want to have, let's say, maybe authorized dealers or authorized producers. You want extremely fast output. You don't want to go on this traditional open to all methodology. You want to have still a scalable network, and you want a special energy efficiency set up, especially on the climate side and technological side. But the disadvantage, of course, is not decentralized. But it really depends where you want to go. I wouldn't personally recommend for an industry in the beginning a permissionless blockchain method. Why? Because you want, first of all, to see the advantages and really build out a set of advantages and plus points and go points for your industry partners, which are, as you said, obviously a little bit overwhelmed with the technology because it's so new and it brings everything but nothing, right? And so you don't want to have this trial and error methodology that we had a couple of years ago on the technical side using blockchain, and then nearly every of those projects died because it was too technical. So you want to kind of uplift the technical layer to a very practical layer, and the practical layer is saying, look at the processes that you already have. Define those processes if they are data-driven, yes or no. If they are data-driven, yes. What is data giving me on a trusted level? Is data really equals data trust, or is there anything else? So let's say, as you said, a certificate of truth or a certificate of origin. Is that certificate basically a trusted piece of paper? Yes, it is. Okay, so you could basically have the piece of paper, have a barcode on the paper, and transmit the paper. You're not really interfering with the existing process. So you don't want to baptize the people saying, oh, you need now an iPad or you need now this technology device. You said, no, you have the same thing. We just upgrade your existing piece of paper with the new information on it. And this new information basically is a permissioned blockchain technology layer, which gives this piece of paper an authenticity on a data level. which is, which people don't really need to know. They just need to know that within an instant, this piece of paper has transformed from a copyable piece of paper with Photoshop or whatever you use to a very unique piece of paper, which is a one-of-one, a piece unique. And you cannot really copy it anymore. Otherwise, a copy will be seen as fraud. So, and I think this is a way to go when it comes, if it comes to fashion industry, but any other industry, which is normally a very substantial ecosystem, which is already built. And if you look a little bit further, let's imagine the new thing, the non-fungible tokens. Non-fungible tokens are basically tokens in a piece that they are not to be copied. They're non-fungible. They're basically unique. So these non-fungible tokens now make a very interesting transformation coming from the art industry, of course, where normally the art stuff is non-fungible, to things like the fashion industry. So let's say if you have individual collections that you have not only piece unique, but limited to 10 pieces, 20 pieces, 30 pieces, or you have something like a pret-a-porter show and you want to have that from that show and you want to make sure that is definitely that piece, then this piece can be now a token. So which means that you could have two sides of the piece. The first side is the physical piece itself that you can wear. And the other one is a digital ownership of the piece that you could sell. It's a little bit abstract, but it's crazy what's going on at that moment there. So basically imagine you're wearing your nice brown sweater and there is also a digital version of that sweater that you have now on an exchange, and you sold that sweater for $1,000 on the virtual exchange, but you're still wearing it. So you have two ownership titles, which is quite interesting.
That truly is fascinating. And from an ignorant perspective, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to have two ownerships of a digital jersey that I can never wear?
Good question, definitely, because it's so abstract to see. However, imagine you have not a sweater, maybe this is a very personal sweater that you have and there is a lot of love in it and you really like it. Let's say the sweater would be a piece that is done by your husband or your grandma or some relative that you really have a deep connection, right? So it means something to you personally. And imagine this piece is lost, stolen, or you don't have it anymore in a physical way, but you still have it in a digital way. Okay. So the peace of mind that comes with that is interesting, and we have seen some research on the physical level, on the psyche level, when it comes to ownership and these two different kinds of ownership titles. And it's really interesting what's going on. So imagine you have an artwork and you rent out the artwork, and you want to rent out the digital title. And this is of course then also digital. So the art galleries at the moment are not sending out, especially when it comes to digital art, the actual piece, but they are sending out the digital title, and you can see the digital title, and you can even buy the digital title. And it's the same there. So imagine, for me, why I would do it is because of that reason. Let's say if I have a piece that is really important to me, and I want to make sure that I have a digital version and I have a real version out of matter. Mm-hmm. And with this matter thing, as everything, the circle of life is always new. So mm-hmm. it can basically go tomorrow, but the digital version is here to stay.
And would that digital version ever be translated into a physical version ever again, or is it just going to be digital forever now?
At the moment, it could, if you are the owner. If you're the owner of the digital version and you have the emphasis to really transfer it back to a physical version, You could do it, of course. If you know, if you want to have all these senses like touching, smelling, seeing, yes, why not?
It's obviously such a new concept, and even myself, I'm trying to wrap my head around. Do you think it's something that blockchain perhaps is something that we need to teach in schools to start educating younger generations now, or is it too early to say?
And I would definitely change the whole education system if I would be the chief education officer of the world in an instant. At the moment, we are learning a lot of things in school, and we basically learning, putting in the head, and then replicating it at a test. We don't really learn for life, right? And the first rule on the blockchain is basically to understand a decentralized network and to understand the power of people, even if you don't see them on your neighborhood, but using technology and using basically the crowd. And this is not taught in a regular university or school. And with this understanding, once you understand open source, openness, trusted relations on, blockchain is then one adaptation of trusted relation using for per se a blockchain. I think this would trigger a lot of creativity. And normally our education system is the total opposite. It's against creativity. It hinders creativity. It normally says you have to learn this and you have to replicate this, and when you do it nice, then you get a good mark. But I want to be creative. Can I do it another way? No, you have to do it this way. And this is basically the big problem. And even we are always looking a little bit fearful to China. China understood that, or is understanding that at the moment. And they're using a lot of creativity tools within their education, which is very strict in the beginning. But they use it basically to say nothing comes from laziness. So the understanding of, if you want to reach something, at some points you really have to do something. You cannot really sit there and wait till the apple falls into your mouth. You have to do something. And this basic understanding that it's not about overworking, and it's not about burnout, it's not about hustling the whole day, it's about smart work. It's about combining things. And this is basically creativity. Exactly,
work smart and not hard. That's very interesting, because it would be amazing if the education system per se would change, because I know everyone has the same feelings about it. I mean, everything's developing apart from the education system, so it hinders a generation going into the rest of the world that's actually developing and changing. But I want to get your understanding of circularity, and where do you find blockchain fits into this?
How would you see circularity?
Circularity, I would say, firstly, it's a matter of design. Everything has to kind of feed into itself. It's a kind of a circular, obviously, processes that just keep on going and feeding, and no one's left out. So no one is not paid. It feeds back into the system. And it's also just interesting to hear what everyone else has been saying, because, for example, from the food industry perspective, Christian Monjandra's version of it was that there's just absolutely no waste. But at the same time, circularity is such a new forming concept, perhaps similar to blockchain at the moment, and people are still trying to understand it, and it's a matter of trial and error. So it's a bit challenging to have a static definition of it, as it's constantly developing and people are trying to understand it further. But essentially, it is to close the loop, to bring everything back, and to basically it's more about collaboration and coming together, furthering away from competition and just focusing, working together. Are there any specific examples of blockchain that you'd like to highlight to our audience where it is purely excelled?
As you all know, we have a crisis, and this crisis is going on for basically decades. It's just erupted now the last 10 years, and it opened the borders. And so refugees is not a new thing. There have been refugees over thousands of years, but not in those clusters and not in those quantities. and not in those geopolitical trends that we see at the moment. And so you have basically at the moment two sides. You have what we would say the first world. I don't know if it's good or bad, and then you have kind of the developing world. And mostly the developing world is the ones which is the richest of them all, because they have all their natural resources, but they have a lot of corruption. So it's normally a pyramid system. So meaning just a few people really benefit of this natural resources and exhaling them. And therefore there are a lot of people who are normally not happy with the situation. And mostly those areas are highly dense populated areas, meaning it's not a one-child policy, it's infinite number of child policy. So, and this brings a lot of problems with it. So these people flee wherever they think there will be hope for a better life. And they mostly flee from, in this case, from Africa to Europe. So at the border of Africa, the north of Africa, there are a lot of refugee camps. And as you can imagine, if there are refugee camps, then there is also a lot of traditional cruelty and a lot of problems that you normally have in dense populated areas. If it's a city or if it's a refugee camp, it's the same thing there. There are humans together, and in a refugee camp, even more. And when it comes to money as an enabling device to buy something, then the tendency of harm and danger is going up instantly. So what we thought is, why can't we use blockchain in one of those camps as an example? And funny enough, the camp itself was not, or let's say the organization behind the camp was not convinced by the technology. They were convinced by putting through money without losing money. So let's say there is a daily suspense of money of 1 million euros. And without using blockchain technology, those 1 million euros would go through somebody who is in charge of translating that euros into the local currency. So you're losing a lot of money there. Then this money is going through a distributing system in the refugee camp, which is a lot of money losing again. Then money can be stolen, and there could be something like criminal intent inside the camp. There even could be, and is in some camps. There even can be in camps something like a mafia organization or some groups who are kind of have tendency to do bad things. So we tried to solve that with blockchain. And how did we do it? So first we had the problem that these people normally are not super technology driven. They don't have the iPhone, they don't have an Android phone, they don't have any phone per se. And secondly, they can read a little bit or not. So they are not really authors of the last literature that we read. So we combined a piece of paper that is looking like a note, in that case with the king of the country where the refugees came from, to have kind of this level of personal trust, and a barcode on it. And the barcode is basically the blockchain layer. So to put it practical, the person goes to a shop and wants to buy convenience food and gets this bill, and the bill is personalized. So let's say Michaela has a bill, and Michaela goes there and buys milk, and so you give the note, you scan the note, then you scan your iris, your eyesight, that you are really Michaela, and then you get your note back. The circulation is not exchanged in smaller notes. The note itself stays the same, and you put it back. All right, so far so good. What is happening when you get robbed? So you get robbed, and then somebody else comes with your note, wants to buy, scans the iris, not working. What is this if it's getting even more cruel? Somebody robs and kills you and cuts out your eye. Not working, right? So, which means that when you explain that on a very basic matter to the people inside the camp with pictures, this is going on, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, it is instantly understood, instantly. You don't have to understand how blockchain works, but it's instantly understood that there is no way on stealing, no way on criminal intent. It's pure trust. The only thing that can happen is that, let's say, you lose the bill, or you wash the bill, or you shredder the bill, or whatever you do with the bill. Also no problem. You go there and say, I lost the bill. You go in the system, the bill is worth that. In that second, you get a new bill. So imagine copying that system to not a refugee camp, but to a regular state like South Africa or Germany, whatever. It could work. You don't need all these bills and coins. You have just one bill, and that's it. And this is how we used it there. And basically, it saved the organization a lot of money, meaning saving from the 1,990,000 really went through, and not kind of in any corrupt or shady channels. And of course, corruption went from 27% to 0. And criminal intent went from 32% to 0. And hostile and violence within families, imagine the father, the mother, 5 children who is fighting, went from 40% to nearly 0. So a lot of nice effects just using technology.
Wow, I absolutely love that case study. It just shows how this tool can just literally be used for good. It's not necessarily, I haven't really heard a bad example of how it's been used. It's just because, like you said, no one can put in fraud, no one can actually corrupt the system, and that is truly, truly amazing. And that really is the future. It's coming together, collaborating and taking responsibility and ownership and trusting each other to actually work together. It's all about trust and no longer segregating ourselves. Like you said, there's no more nationalities. It's all based on the world as a whole. And that's exactly what the Guest for Change stands for. And that's what Guest for Change brings together, is also to start these conversations and to educate the public on what industry members like yourself are actually communicating and talking about, and leveraging to people's level and understanding that we are all part of this together. It's awe-inspiring, I must say. And talking to you, it's just, I could pick your brain for hours, because there's still many intricacies that I would love to understand further. But that actually wraps up our interview, and there's just so much food for thought on how we can actually bring about change in the future, and how perhaps this incentivizes people to actually understand blockchain further and see why it's not this thing that should be feared because they don't understand. It's a matter of, it is quite simple. It's quite simple, and it's happening, and it's creating a world of good. And just absolutely thank you, Dr. Michael Gebert. I'm so glad we had this conversation. It's been wonderful, and I cannot wait for our audience to just tap into your brain as I did right now.
Thank you. Enjoy your afternoon. Thank you so much for you and your time.
And that's a wrap. Oh, wow, what an amazing man. Just understanding all the intricacies behind blockchain. I just feel like I need to understand more, because it is revolutionizing as we speak. For our next Guest for Change interview, make sure you stay updated and stay tuned by subscribing and liking below. We'll see you soon.